My other guest host, he's not here tonight, but I brought an old friend. We've been cool now for 16 long years. Is that correct, my brother?
That
About
sounds about
16.
right. Very
So today
accurate.
we're doing graded all Power Five football schools from 2022 season. I'll introduce my guest host of tonight, none other than Buckeye Nation's finest, my friend Justin Walker City Walker, man. Welcome to the video tonight, Justin. How you feel?
Pretty good, man.
Are
You
you
know,
ready?
we
Now,
yes, ready. Very
are you,
excited. We got a big game coming up in a couple of weeks.
you ready for Buckeye Nation try to recap glory in the college football playoff?
I hope so, man. We climbing a big mountain. Big mountain that day.
Well, we'll talk about the Buckeyes a little bit. So here's how we're gonna do. I have a wheel right here in this phone. See the wheel?
Oh
We're
wow,
gonna
you guys
spin
are
this
all set
wheel.
up. Uh-huh.
We're gonna spin this wheel, and the school we land on, we will grade that school season. All right.
Okay.
We're gonna what goes into play, strength of schedule, the record they had overall, and all that will come into play to give them a final grade. Now, me and you will both give grades based on how we felt about that team's year. All right.
Okay.
So let's get into it. The first school we're gonna talk about. Let's spin this wheel. I'm pretty excited. So the wheel's gonna land on. If it's not a Power Five school, we will skip it and spin again. Oh man, look who it is. The first school we're gonna talk about is the Florida Gators. The first school.
Whoa, Florida
How ironic
Gators.
we're gonna talk about the Gators. So,
Wow.
being a Gator fan, I'm gonna start this show off. It's been a very
Smooth
up
first
and down
fuel in
year
the
for.
fire.
Yeah, I'm throwing the fire already. Florida coming off a 6-6 season for the second consecutive season, led by New York head coach Billy Napier from the University of Louisiana Lafayette, who took over for Dan Mullen, who was
Wait,
dismissed.
wait. I got a hand up.
All right,
Is
go
this
ahead.
is this the same Florida team that let Dan Mullen go after 2 year Nick Souls and two New Year's Six Bowl appearances?
Listen, I was for Dan Mullen to stay at least another year. I was not in favor for Dan Mullen to leave. I wasn't.
Okay, I just want to make sure this was the same Florida. Sorry.
This
Continue,
is
continue.
what this. I'm agree. This is one of the dumbest fires we have done in recent years. Granted, he didn't win big games that matter the most, but he did something that we haven't done since the Jim McElwain era, and that's
Mm-hmm.
the we didn't get to Atlanta but once, but still the fact that we was on the big stage for 2 consecutive years, not including a huge win against Michigan, got to the
Mm-hmm.
Orange Bowl and beat Virginia. We was a possession away from beat Alabama in the SEC championship game.
Yeah.
However, we had a Heisman Trophy finalist. We had probably the deadliest offense Florida has since the Tim Tebow era,
Mm-hmm.
and we still let the man go. That was
Yeah.
very cool for us. And then Emory Jones transferred to Arizona State. AR-15 was throwing the fire. He was up and down all year. He's not a
Mm-hmm.
legit passer. I think the only reason he left this year is because he has a high ceiling in the NFL. 6'4" guy, 230 pounds, Corona sub 4'5". I mean, he's gonna be a first round pick wherever he goes. I think what was our problem was we could not stop nobody defensively. Every team we played against, they averaged over 400 yards of offense. The only team that we didn't struggle to beat or compete against was USF, and they was one of the worst teams in college football last year. This year,
Mm-hmm.
they won in 12. So up and down, Florida had a great win to start the season against Utah to start the year, and then they
Mm-hmm.
got humbled against Kentucky, and then Tennessee out of nowhere came out. They beat us, but Tennessee was a good team last year. We played them in the swamp, and they was beat us last year. Henry Hooker was
Yeah.
amazing in that game, but AR did throw for 400 yards. So it was light in the end of the tunnel, despite having
Yeah.
two.
I told a lot of diehard Gator fans, my boy Michael. I told him, I said that schedule was very brutal that Billy Napier had to deal with this year. It was a very brutal schedule. Now, granted, Florida had what 7 or 8 home games. Correct me,
We
seven,
had
eight.
quite a bit of home games, yeah.
Yeah, 7 or 8 home games. But I mean, overall, I still think he had a pretty decent season. The only loss that kind of bothers me with Florida is that Vanderbilt and Kentucky game. I mean, you take those 2 games away, Florida have a decent season. You know what I mean? But
Yeah,
and they're gonna have their handful of Oregon State. Oregon State like to run the ball right down your throat.
Oh, really? I haven't seen Oregon State play all year.
Yeah, they like to run the ball right down your throat. So that's gonna be a huge test for Florida right there. That is. And the
Well,
AR-15, I mean, I'm actually shocked that he actually going to the draft. I had to look his stats up. His stats ain't that bad. He just need to work on his completion rate. I mean, his
yeah,
completion rate is very bad. Yeah,
it's one of the worst in the country. You saw the Florida State game. He was 9 for 27 passing in that football game. Now,
9 for 27. Yeah,
granted,
dang.
now we was down five receivers. We was
Uh
down
huh.
five receivers, and our only receiver we had, he had 5 of the 9 catches, but he
Dang.
had 140 yards and 2 touchdowns. So we had to work with what we got.
Mhm.
Our bread and butter this year was a running game with Trevor Etienne and Johnson at running back. We have a
Mhm.
top 15 run offense in the country. You look at the Florida State
Yeah.
game. Florida could have won the game when he kept running the football. We was very effective in making
Mhm.
second and short, third and short, so we want the fourth 8 yard to be a passer. But now
Yeah.
they come.
I wonder how Florida's gonna be moving forward since they don't since AR-15 won't be. I mean, Jack Miller. I'm not really sure that's his strength towards running the ball like they use AR this year.
Well,
You
he's
know,
got
he's
the
more
back.
of a pocket passer.
Well, we haven't had a pure pocket passer since Kyle Trask, so
Oh
well,
yeah.
it's gonna be nice
Mhm.
to see someone that could really focus on winging it, throwing the football instead of always looking to
Mhm.
run first.
But
If I
nobody was expecting Florida, to be a juggernaut. Say if y'all have a season like this next year, going in a year 3, then it could be panic. Because but Billy Napier knows he's at University of Florida. You're gonna get it, or they're gonna get you out of there. It's just that simple. Yeah.
if I had to grade Florida season from a standpoint, I'm gonna give it a C minus. That's my grade for the Florida game. A C minus. SEC Nation had us going 6-6 anyways. We were spot on at 6-6. We're down a lot of players going into Las Vegas Bowl against Oregon State because either they're transferring, they're going to the draft, or they're just going to sit out. So Jack Miller
Hmm.
will start his first game as a Florida Gator against Oregon State with literally no weapons to play with. So I'm gonna give Florida C minus for the 2022 season. What about you?
Yeah, I would give them a C minus too. I mean, I looked at the schedule, man. The schedule was a juggernaut. It really was. I mean, they beat Utah. That's a huge win. I mean, beating Utah could I honestly think it kept them out the playoffs. You know?
Yeah, that loss did prevent them from being in the
Yeah.
playoffs. Even though they did
Mhm.
win the Pac-12 title,
Yeah.
that they had
Pac-12.
3 losses in the
Yeah.
regular season.
Mhm.
So
It could have kept
that's
them out
what.
the playoffs. Yeah.
What about you? What do you grade give for a C minus as well?
Yeah. C minus. I give Florida a C minus this season.
All right, the next team we're gonna grade the Stanford Cardinal out of the Pac-12. Now I haven't
Ooh.
watched Stanford play all year, but from
Me
what I
either.
heard, they're one of the worst teams in the Pac-12.
Mm.
So what do you think? What are your thoughts about the Stanford Cardinal? What would you grade
Well,
them this year?
I would have to give him a. I would have to give him a D minus. I know what David Shaw. He don't hung it up, right?
Yeah, he
He
hung it up.
retired,
Yep, he
right?
retired.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, they ain't been good since what? Oh man, Andrew Luck
Andrew
sounds
Luck,
about
Jonathan
right.
Taylor.
Yeah. Yeah. They ain't been good since then. Yeah.
I'm gonna give him a D minus as well. David
Mhm.
Shaw, this is a bad way for him to go out. But
Yeah.
at this point, you're not winning games, not competing no more in the Pac-12. You got teams like Oregon State stepping up. Teams
I
like
mean,
when you caught us
you
came it past them.
you hit this with a good one. I mean, I don't know the last time they've been relevant. I mean, you got to go 3 or 4 seasons, probably longer than that. I mean,
The last
Utah's been the Pac-12 juggernaut. Yeah.
last time you seen Stanford relevant, well, Christian McCaffrey was in school,
Yeah, that's
and
been
that's been
oh
a good
Lord,
4, 5, 6 years.
4 or 5 years sounds about right. Yeah, they have had some terrible seasons. I mean, they ain't been upsetting USC, Washington, or none of them other world. No Notre
So,
Dame upset. Yeah, none of that.
so we agree that Stanford will get a D minus, correct?
A D minus, and David Shaw ain't leaving on good terms. You know.
So next team we're gonna
He,
talk about, we're back in the SEC this time with the SEC West. We're gonna talk about Mike Leach and the Mississippi State Bulldogs.
ooh,
Let's talk about
Mississippi State Bulldogs.
so that air raid offense down in Starksville got them boys third place in the SEC West with an 8-4 record. They
Eight
finished
and
ranked
four
number
record.
22 in the country, and they will play
Mm-hmm.
Illinois in their bowl game. So my
Mm-hmm.
question is, well, how would you grade the Bulldogs of Mississippi State?
I would give them a C+ because that Ole Miss game was winnable, and I want to say it was LSU. They could have won that game also. Yeah. I
Yeah,
give
if
them
you
a
look
C
at their
plus.
schedule, Mississippi State they lost to Kentucky by 10. They did beat A&M when they was right earlier on in the year. They lost a tough one on the road against LSU by 15. They lost to
Yeah.
Georgia by 16, and they beat Ole Miss to end the season. So they'll play Illinois in the Lion Quest Bowl on January 2nd, which
Oh,
they
sorry.
are.
They beat Ole Miss.
Yeah, they beat Ole Miss by 2 in the Egg Bowl.
Mm.
So I'll give Mississippi State a B for the fact they've been consistent ranking all year. If they could have finished a game like a for example Kentucky or a game like Kentucky they could have won. I think they could have easily had a possibly had a chance to get a New Year's Six bowl with a 9-3 record.
Mm-hmm.
But that Kentucky loss looks bad because Kentucky finished season 7-5, and they flounced down the stretch as well. They really struggled down the stretch, and we're gonna talk about Kentucky in a few. But Kentucky was one of the teams that you thought was going to represent East in the SEC championship game, but that mid-season collapse really hurt the Wildcats going to Atlanta, and it was just a two-team race between Georgia and Tennessee.
Yeah, I didn't watch too much of Mississippi State, but I mean, 8-4. That's pretty well. Who are they playing in the bowl game?
They're playing
By any
Illinois,
chance?
another team that's shocked everybody this year. Brett
Ooh,
Bielema crew.
yeah, Brett Billimus got in there, got in there, turned that thing around. I mean, they was a bad call away from beating Michigan. I mean, very bad call away from beating Michigan. Yeah.
So my question to you is this now. We're gonna talk about the next team. So we both agree there. You said a B minus. I say a B. Because looking at quarterback Will Rogers, he was sensational this year for his last year in college. I believe he threw for over 3,000 yards again for the second season. He was a winner. He competed. Let me look at his stats. For 3,700 yards this year, 34 touchdowns, only 6 picks, completing what 68% of his passes. That's pretty amazing right there.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Is my video frozen? Oh, no, it's not moving anymore.
Yeah, your video kind of froze.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll work on it. We'll get it fixed. Next thing we're gonna talk about a team that used to be one of the top contenders in the ACC, but has fell off over the last 3 4 years. And we're talking about the Virginia Tech Hokies. A tough year for Virginia
Ooh,
Tech.
Lord.
One of the worst teams in the ACC, if not the worst team in the ACC. What are your
Mm.
thoughts on the Hokies of Virginia Tech?
Virginia Tech Hokies, man,
That's
they've been
another
good
team
since.
like Stanford who used to be
Yeah,
relevant.
they've been good since Frank Beamer. Yeah.
When you look at the Virginia Tech Hokies schedule, they started the season with a loss against Old Dominion on the road, and they get no
On the
better
million on the
from
road.
they get no
Mm-hmm.
better for that. Before they played West Virginia, that's the only time of the year they had a winning record.
Then they finished what 4-8, 4-9. I mean 4-8,
Yeah,
four
they
and eight.
game against they lost to Miami, who was horrible. They lost to
Mm.
Georgia Tech, even worse. They lost to NC State without their starting quarterback. They lost to Pitt. They lost to North Carolina. And they lost to West Virginia. They even lost to Duke. Their last and only win came against a 1 point win against Liberty.
They went 1-11.
Their witness, I think they went. Let me see their standings. If I last touch, I think they won like 4 games, 3 or 4 games. Could it be Wofford? They beat Liberty. They beat what did they win this year? Virginia Tech went 3-8, 1-6 in the ACC.
1-6 in the ACC. Wow. There was a lot of hype around Virginia Tech. That Mullen name floated around there for a good minute. I mean, I guess he did. I guess he turned down. I know his name floated around there for a good minute. Dan Mullen with Virginia Tech.
So if there is a school that Dan Mullen could go to, I think Virginia Tech would love to have him because their
Mm-hmm.
offense has been really bad over the
Mm-hmm.
last 3 years. Since Frank Beaver retired, those guys have not been relevant at all in the ACC
Mm-hmm.
consistently like they should. Um,
Mm.
I'm gonna give Virginia Tech a D on the season, maybe a D.
Mm-hmm.
I got D minus for Virginia Tech.
Yeah, I would give them a D minus also. I mean,
It's just they're the same level as Stanford. If they play each other right now, I wouldn't care who win that game. It's that
and
bad.
they on what we call what is it called? DEFCON 2, what they on right now. I mean, they
Yeah,
got to
man,
get something going them DEFCON 2.
those guys are bad. They finished right the same level as their in-state rival Virginia. They went 3-7 and 1-6. But you know what kind of year they had? They had a shooting at the end of the season that really took the sales out of their season. They even canceled the Virginia Tech game. Both schools decided to cancel that game in wake
Mm-hmm.
of the mass shooting that happened a few weeks ago.
Three.
Next thing we're talking about is against a team that Ohio State beat early on this year. That's another Dame Fighting Irish. The Fighting
Ooh.
Irish had a tough early on in the year, but they turned it up late with Drew
Mm-hmm.
Pine at quarterback. After the Marshall loss, Drew Pine has turned it up, and now Notre Dame started the season very sluggish. They're now in a big time bowl matchup against South Carolina in the Gator Bowl. How would you grade Notre Dame's season?
I would give them. That's a good question. Oh man, I don't want to be too harsh. I mean,
I mean,
I'm
Marcus
having a
Freeman
hard.
had a pretty tough first half of the year,
Yeah,
but he
I'm
turned
having a
it up
hard
late.
time. I'm having a hard time still swallowing that Marshall loss. I would have to give them a C plus.
C plus. I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna
I'm having
give
a hard time following that Marshall law. That's still sticking to me.
That's all
I
right.
mean, you.
First half of the year, I'll give Notre Dame a C minus. But if they turn so good late, I'm gonna give him a
Mm-hmm.
B. I'm gonna give him a B, B minus,
B.
B minus,
B
B
minus.
minus,
Ooh,
B minus
man.
because that martial loss was very ugly, especially at home in South Bend, which they didn't take that too
Mm-hmm.
likely. Plus that horrible shooting against Ohio State offensively, that was pretty pitiful. But they turned
Mm-hmm.
up late, so I'll give it a benefit. I'll give him a B minus for the 2022 season. So now for here on out, we're gonna grade conference by conference instead of spinning this wheel. We're gonna be here all night. So let's go ahead and go back to the
Mm-hmm.
ACC where we started off at. We're gonna talk about the ACC champion, the Clemson Tigers. They finished the season 11-2, the number 7 in the country, and they'll meet Tennessee in the Orange Bowl. How would you grade the ACC champ, the Clemson Tigers?
How would I grade the ACC champ, Clemson Tigers? Let's see. This is. Oh, help me out.
I'm gonna give
2 years, two
Clemson, from
years
my
in a row
perspective,
without a playoff appearance, right? 2 years in a row without a playoff appearance, right?
yes,
2 years
two
in a
years in a
row.
row, yes,
2 years without a playoff appearance. They went 10-3 last year in the regular season.
right.
Yeah, they went 10-3 this year. They finishing at 10-2, right?
They're 11-2 right now.
11-2. Okay, that's right. They are. They beat North Carolina championship. Correction. Uh, I will give them I'll give them a B plus. I give them a
B
B
plus.
plus. I mean, what's really stopping them is the quarterback. They got to figure out the quarterback. I mean, Dabo's gave in Uje Alonso plenty of time to get that thing rolling. I think they're gonna roll with the K Cup from here on out. I mean,
So
I actually saw with DJ Ole they'll enter the transfer board.
yeah, so I'm gonna give Clemson the same grade of B plus.
B
It
plus.
is true that DJ Ugalele is transferring. Here's the reason why he's transferring. He got benched in the second series after the second series against North Carolina. Dabo
Mhm.
said early on that week prior to the game that Ugalele will start, but he was gonna get benched anyways after the second series. So it didn't matter if
Mm.
he was no good or not. He was getting
Uh,
pulled when he
uh,
told sources. So Kay Kolubnik was gonna play regardless how Ugalele played
regardless. And I like
because
how Dabo's handling that. You send Clay Cup and then out there in real time game snaps. You know.
well, so now you remember this situation. This reminds me of the Kelly Bryant situation a couple of years ago, when
Yeah.
Kelly Bryant struggled, and then Trevor
Mhm.
Lawrence started, and the rest is history. So could
Mhm.
this be a Kelly Bryant Trevor Lawrence situation part two?
Mhm.
We'll
Part two.
see.
Yeah.
Cam Columbia will start in the Orange Bowl against Tennessee. Per
Mhm.
Dabble, he will start in the Orange Bowl. I'm gonna give the
That's gonna
Tigers
be
a
a
B plus
very
as well.
interesting bowl game right there. That's gonna be a really good bowl game. But I
I'll,
like Clemson in it. I really like Clemson.
I'll give Clemson a dub too for the fact that Hayden Hooker's not playing.
Mhm.
And I think Cam Columbia, who showed that he could put the team on his back when needed to,
Mhm.
he's a PTP, he's a blue chip 5-star recruit, and I feel like he's gonna carry Clemson back to the college football playoff next season. I'm gonna give the Tigers a B plus. The next team we're gonna talk about, a team you just got to talking about, probably the most surprising team in college football, the 13th ranked Florida State Seminoles, who finished
Ooh.
second in the ACC at 5-3 and 9-3
Mhm.
overall. They will take
Mhm.
on Oklahoma in the Cheez It Bowl. So, how do you
Mm.
feel about Florida State's season this past year?
I would have to give Florida State. Man, how do you give a team that went 9-3? I would give Florida State a B plus. Man, if they can just erase one more loss, I'll give them an A. They lost 3 games. Granted, they lost 3 games in a row. They lost to Wake Forest, Clemson, and who else? The other team that
NC
beat them?
State.
NC State. They lost all 3 of those back to back. Florida State also led the country this year in explosive plays over 20 yards. Over
Yeah,
20 yards.
man.
They led the country this year.
So
All
I'm
knows it was a one-hit wonder, but they are the most improved team this season. I saw the most improved team.
so I can go ahead and give you this. I'm gonna explain mine. I'm gonna give Florida State an A-.
A
And I'm
minus.
gonna tell you why. They lost to three very good teams. Wake
Mm-hmm.
Forest, bowl eligible. NC State,
Mm-hmm.
despite losing Devin Leary, still bowl eligible. The
Still bowl
only reason
eligible.
they lost to NC State is because of bad coaching by Mike Novell to throw the ball in the red zone when all he had to do was kick a field goal to win the
Mm.
game. You turn away that turnover, you kick the field goal,
Mm-hmm.
Florida State 10-2.
It could be the difference in you playing.
In the
It could be.
playoffs, possibly,
Yeah.
because
Mm-hmm.
if they could have won out, if that would be NC State, I think they could have beat Clemson.
And the Clemson. Mm-hmm.
So
And then
I'm gonna give Florida State.
that loss right there cost them easily. I still think Florida State got snubbed for a New Year's Six bowl. I think they should have
Oh
got
yeah,
that game.
Tulane does not
Honestly.
deserve to be on New Year's Six Bowl over Florida State. That
Mm-hmm.
we can agree to that together. That
Mm-hmm.
Tulane was not New Year's Six Bowl. First of all, they're 16th in the country. The only
Mm-hmm.
thing they have over Florida State is a conference championship, and they're in the group of five. So I mean, their Cinderella story, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
but they're gonna get murdered. They could probably get murdered by USC in the
But
Cotton Bowl.
that's something they need to look at. If you right at that borderline rank 16 in a group of five, you normally get in there and you get your New Year's Six bowl. But I just think Florida State should have gotten in over them. Yeah.
All
But
right, let's
yeah,
talk
man,
about. Let's talk.
Florida State win the bowl game, be the first 10-win season since Jameis Winston. Yeah.
No. First win since Francois freshman year.
Oh, they went 10. They went 10
Yeah,
games that year.
they went 10 wins that year when they beat Michigan in the Orange Bowl.
Okay. Okay. All right.
That was Clemson last year.
Okay.
So let's go look at the team that Clemson beat in the NC Championship. Drake May in the North Carolina Tar Heels. They finished nine
Mm.
and four overall, and Drake May actually put himself in the transfer portal, and he was a true
Mm.
freshman. So that was a shocker to me. He was what probably one of the best quarterbacks in college football
Mm-hmm.
that didn't make the Heisman Trophy ceremony.
Yeah.
I think Drake May had a better year than Stetson Bennett.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Yeah.
and Stetson Bennett finished, I believe, third in the Heisman Trophy.
They coming off they on a 3-game losing streak. Sounds about right. North Carolina on
Yeah,
a
they
3-game
lost to
losing
Suffolk
streak.
against NC State. They lost to Georgia
Mm-hmm.
Tech. And I forgot
Mm-hmm.
who the third loss was against.
They lost to Clemson
Oh,
again
the
back
Clemson.
in it.
Clemson, that's right.
Clemson. Yeah. Mm-hmm. They on a 3-game losing streak. Yeah.
So where would you rate Clemson? Where would the NC State? NC defense is god awful, but their offense is
Mm-hmm.
probably one of the best in the country. I'm gonna
I
give
mean,
NC State a B. I'm gonna give
I give
NC
him
a
a
B.
B. Matt Brown. Matt Brown took that conference, from nowhere.
I mean, Matt Brown's done a great job since he's been at UNC.
Mm-hmm.
People thought he was
Yeah.
washed as a head coach, but you gotta give Matt Brown credit. He got a first of all, you
Mm-hmm.
find a defensive coordinator. Cause his defense is god awful. God awful defense.
Yeah, I give him a B. I give him a B.
All right, what about Syracuse? They finished 7-5 after starting the season 4-0. And we
Mm.
know the quarterback was hurt for most of the mid part of the season. That's how they collapsed. But a 7-win season for Syracuse, that's pretty good for their standards. What did
Yeah,
you give the Orangemen a 7-5 team? What grade would you give them?
I give him a C plus. C
C plus.
plus.
I'm gonna give them. I'm gonna give them a C. I'm gonna give them a C.
Mm-hmm. C.
That mid part, you know, they. I'll give them a C plus. Just because they had a 7-win season.
Now who did they beat? They had a really good win this season. I can't pull it off the top of my head.
Well, let's go look at their schedule. So Syracuse, they had a big win against NC State at home by 15.
That sounds about right. Right at NC State.
That's a game that propelled them, but then they lost 5 consecutive games. They lost to Clemson, they lost to Notre Dame, they lost to Pitt, they lost to Florida State, and they lost to Wake Forest before they finally ended the losing streak with wins against Boston College. They'll be playing against Minnesota in the Bad Boy Boys Pinstripe Bowl at Yankee Stadium.
So one thing we know for sure moving forward, both Syracuse and Florida State, if you wipe away they laying them eggs for a couple of weeks. Either one of them are playing for a New Year's Six Bowl right now because both of them teams were on some terrible losing streaks at one point.
But the thing is, for us, they had Jordan Travis at Syracuse. They had their quarterback for several weeks.
Oh, okay. Mm.
Yeah, Schroeder got hurt. I think the Clemson game. He ain't been back. He ain't come back to probably towards the end of that losing streak. I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
give Syracuse a C plus.
C plus.
Uh, Pitt. Pitt finished 8-4. Keaton Slovis once again in the transfer portal for the third time now.
Mm.
He transferred from USC to Pitt, and now he's going from Pitt to somewhere else as a graduate transfer. You know, extra COVID year helped him out as well. So a
Mm-hmm.
lot of these players are supposed to be graduating right now get the extra free year because of COVID. That's why Ugolele's still in college. Spencer Rattler was still in college. And now Keaton Slovis, he's now a senior. He's transferred again. Pitt had a pretty good 8-4 season. I'm gonna give
Mm-hmm.
Pitt a B minus.
D minus.
No, B minus.
Oh,
B
B
minus
minus.
for
Okay,
Pitt.
sorry, B minus. Yeah, I would give them a B minus. Also, I'm still wondering. They should have beaten Tennessee. They should have
They
beaten
should
them.
have definitely beat Tennessee.
They should have
That I
definitely
agree with
beaten
you on.
Tennessee. Yeah.
That Tennessee win
Mhm.
propelled Tennessee to where they are today.
Yeah. Mhm.
They had some ugly losses though this year. They lost a tough one against Georgia Tech at home. They lost a tough one road against Louisville. They
We're
they
definitely you're. I definitely like your spinning the wheel. We're definitely getting some teams that I'll be honest. I hardly peaked at this year.
I haven't seen Pitt play since that Tennessee loss.
Yeah, I lost. I actually watched that game also. Yeah.
They'll be playing UCLA in the 20 Tigers Sun Bowl on January 30th. That's gonna be a
Mhm.
good game. Battle of two teams that had high hopes at the beginning of the year, but kind of withered down the
Mhm.
stretch.
I mean,
I'm a
a B ain't bad. I mean,
nah,
they
that
they they they
season
did
average.
they went they lost. Did they lose their bowl game? New Year's Six bowl game last year that Kenny Pickett sitting out? I couldn't remember. They didn't lose it or not.
They played a music bowl game last year.
I think Pick did play a New Year's Six bowl. I remember Kenny Pickett sat out on them last year.
Oh, let me go look that up. While we talk about the next team, let's talk about. I want your take on Duke. Duke 8-4 this past season. They finished third in the Coastal. What you graded Duke? While I looked at information about Pitt last year.
I would give Duke. Um, let's see. I give him a B.
Why you give him a B?
I give him a B. Duke. It's pretty hard for. It's pretty hard when you think about it. Everybody in the ACC, or it's a dumpster fire other than Clemson. They nobody seems to be what this the first time in maybe 9 years that you got what two or three teams on the ACC that's got maybe 7 wins. I mean, it's been terrible in ACC lately. It has. I mean, now
Yeah,
you
you
got
got a
uh
lot
you
of
got
teams with 7 wins.
Pittsburgh, you got Duke, you got Syracuse, Clemson, Florida State. We didn't have that about 5 years ago. I mean, ACC was. I mean, what you got? What I think they said not last year, the year before that, the last 5 years, the last 5 seasons, you had a difference conference championship, a difference conference champ for 5 years straight. That's terrible. That's terrible. They have a difference conference champion within a 5 year span.
So if we look at the ACC as a whole, all teams with 7 wins. Wake Forest,
Mm-hmm.
Duke, NC
Mm.
State, Louisville, Syracuse, Clemson, Pitt, North Carolina, Florida State, and Clemson. All
You know
7 wins.
what, Charles? Now that you mention that, the ACC takes a lot of heat, but it sounds like to me they may have the most bowl eligible teams this season.
They do. If you look at it
They
right
do.
now, the Atlantic alone
Wow.
have 6, and then the Coastal have 3. You have
Hmm.
9 bowl teams from the ACC by
That is
itself.
that's fantastic for the conference. That is.
And then if you look at it, Wake Forest was the second worst team in the Atlantic with 3-5 record in the conference.
Hmm.
And they still finished 7-5 overall.
Hmm.
So the next team we're going to talk about another team this time from the Atlantic. We're going to talk about Louisville. Louisville started the season very
Ooh.
struggish. They finished 7 wins, and they're going to a bowl game as well. What do you grade on Malik Cunningham and the Cardinals?
I watched that Florida State game, and that was the only time I actually got the opportunity to see Louisville this season. And you said they went 7-5,
7-5.
7-5, and they suffered losses to Florida State. Who was
They
their
lost to
losses
Kentucky, they
to?
lost to Kentucky to end the season. They lost to Clemson by 15. They lost to Boston College, ugly Boston College loss. They lost to Florida State, and they also lost
That's
to
a terrible
Syracuse
loss
at
right
the
there,
end of the
Boston
year.
College. Yeah,
I'm
I'm gonna
gonna
give them a
give,
C minus.
I'll give them a C on the head. I'm gonna give them a C on the
C.
head.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just because of they rebounded from that Boston College loss to get a big win against Pittsburgh, got a big win against Louisville. So I'm gonna give them a C. They got huge wins against Louisville, NC State. I'm gonna give them a C plus because they got three huge wins to end the season. That Wake Forest, Louisville, and NC State lost wins were all at home.
I just think the fan base want to see Louisville get back to the Lamar Jackson kind of the world. You know what I mean?
Well, Malik Cunningham
That's when
played
they was
just like
dominant.
Lamar Jackson.
Hmm.
So I'm gonna give the Cardinals a C plus.
C
Let's go
plus.
ahead. Let's go to NC State. They finished 8-4. Devin Leary was out for the remainder of the season. They're ranked number 23 in the country. They finished 4-4 in the
I
ACC.
heard there was rumors that he was trying to enter the transfer portal. We got any
He,
updates on that?
he is in the transfer portal. Officially, he is in the transfer.
Wow.
Devin Leary is in the transfer portal for NC State. NC State will play former ACC foe Maryland in the Duke's Mayo's Bowl on January 30th. NC State,
NC State,
what you gonna give
they
them?
what was their record last year? Uh, is
NC
it
State
better this
last
year than
year?
last year? Yeah.
Oh yeah, they're definitely better this year than they was last year. They're about the same as last year. They're about cause of the tough middle part of the schedule where Devin Leary got hurt. That's what really hurt them.
They was kind of a dark horse. Their name was mentioned a lot in the preseason towards being a playoff dark horse. I don't know if the pressure got to them or what, but
I do
overall, they
I
had a
do
pretty decent season to overcome Devin Leary injury. I would give them a C plus.
I have it up there on Devin Leary from Finn side. There's three Big 12 schools that's interested in Devin Leary. I'm gonna name
Oh
those three
wow,
Big
three
12
Big
schools
12s.
out. The one school is gonna be West Virginia. And West Virginia is one of them, followed by number two being Oklahoma State, and then number three, I believe it said Texas. No, TCU.
Mm.
So
I think
TCU,
TCU would
Oklahoma
be a
State.
good spot for
Yeah, definitely. Now with that Max Duggan's about to graduate and leave after this season,
them.
they're looking for someone to replace him.
Yeah,
All right, so I'm gonna give NC State a B for the
I
season.
mean,
Yeah, I'm gonna give them a B. Let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and go to Wake Forest. 7-5 in the ACC. Finished second to last in the Atlantic. Where would you give the Demon Deacons?
let's see. Terrible defense all season long. All the losses are falling on their defense. Their defense is terrible. I would have to give them a C, C, C.
A C.
I
I'm
mean a
with you.
borderline C.
Yeah, man. That end of the season flop. I mean, it was bad for NC State.
Hmm.
I join you with the C department. Maybe a C minus, depending between which NC State or which Wake Forest team you're gonna get. I'm gonna give the Demon Deacons a C. We're gonna go to
Hmm.
now. We're going to Georgia Tech. Now Georgia Tech is one of those 5-17 that turned up late after they fired their head coach. What kind of his name? Who's the Georgia head coach? It was Jeff Collins. And they fired Jeff Collins. Those guys finished the season winning for 40 last 5 games, and all he had to do was beat Georgia. They would be more eligible. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. I'm gonna give for valiant effort. I'm gonna give Georgia Tech a C minus
C minus.
for what
I'm
they
gonna
started
give
off and
Georgia
what they
Tech.
finished. I'm gonna give
I'm
them a
gonna
C
give
minus.
Georgia Tech. Let's grade them on the back end of their schedule.
Back in, I'm
Charles,
gonna give them an A minus.
Charles, Georgia Tech last year finished the season the last two losses combined, they lost 100-0. And
Whew.
for them to finish the season 4 out of 5 wins, we got to get them an A. They're and let's be honest, they actually had Georgia blood pressure up for a little bit in that game, and Georgia said,
They
"No, we
did.
ain't having that. We just gonna go and take care of y'all now." So I'll have to give them a overall. I'll give them an A. I'm gonna grade the back end of their schedule. I'm gonna forget the worst of their schedule. I'm gonna grade the back end of the schedule. But last year they gave up 100 points combined the last two losses of the season. It is an FBS record.
Well, we do it at the back end. I'm gonna give them an A as well because the turnaround they had, that UNC win on the road was clutch for them.
Yeah.
They gave a confidence boost going to that Georgia game. They was up on Georgia for most of the
Yeah.
first half.
You know what? Neither one has mentioned right now, Charles. The juggernauts in the ACC are struggling. The old school
Yeah,
juggernauts:
yeah,
Virginia Tech, Georgia Tech, Louisville, Miami. Those used to be the juggernauts, and they're struggling. I mean,
yeah.
if them get on board ACC, people can't bash them anymore. Yeah.
All right. Next school we're talking. Now we're talking about some of the teams that's struggling in the ACC. Let's start off with Miami, 5-7. How do
Good
you grade the
Lord.
Canes, man? Oh Lord,
Well, we're gonna give them a
I'm gonna give
tropical
them a D.
storm.
Give them a
We got to
D.
give them a D, a
Gotta
D
give them
minus. Got to give them a
that.
D minus.
That Middle Tennessee State loss was
That Middle
hideous.
Tennessee, you gave up 2 plays over 70 yards, man.
This ain't the U we know.
And then
I'm gonna give them a D.
Florida State showed up and just beat them across the head with a pan for 4 quarters. The U ain't back. I'm sorry, anybody that listen to this
Man.
podcast that's a Miami Hurricane fan, but the U ain't back. You need some salvation over there. I like I like Mario Cristobal. I like that he's going back home. That's really good. He's
He ain't
closer to
the
his
answer.
family.
He ain't the
But
answer.
man, whew, Miami. You got too much talent coming out of down south for Miami to be get drugged like that.
I agree.
Miami got to do a better job in that. God, man. You just Miami Central alone. There's so much talent coming out of there year in, year out. God, they was terrible this year.
Yeah, I'm gonna give the Canes the same thing, man. D man.
And correction, they're not both eligible, right? They're not both
Oh,
eligible,
they're
right?
5-7.
Oh
They had,
Lord,
they,
that's
they had
what
to
two
they had to
years
be picked. They had to be picked to be bowl eligible.
both eligible. Dang.
Next team we're gonna talk about Virginia, 3-7 Virginia. Where you got them? I'm gonna give them a D as
Well,
well.
the last time I glimpsed at Virginia, the last time they actually played Florida for a
The
New Year's
Orange
Six
Bowl.
bowl, Orange Bowl, and
I'm gonna give Virginia, Wait Virginia and Virginia Tech, and Boston College all Fs.
F's, yeah.
So
Put
now
the
we're gonna
nail in the
go.
coffin.
Yeah, let's go on to another conference. What conference you want to do next? Let's do Big Ten. Actually, no.
Ooh,
Let's do that last. Let's do that last. Let's go to SEC.
SEC.
Let's go
It
start.
just means more.
We already talked about Florida. Let's talk about LSU. LSU
Okay.
Tigers in the SEC championship for the second time since 2019. They got beat by Georgia by 20, and now they're on to their bowl game. Where would you grade Brian Kelly's first year down there in the Bayou Jungle?
I would have to give him a B plus. I'm still shocked. LSU kept that higher. It was like high classified information. They surprised everybody when they hired Brian Kelly. But when I thought deep about it, I was like, man, that ain't a bad hire, Justin. That's really not a bad hire. I give them a B plus. That Florida State loss was goofy. That was a winnable game.
Yeah,
And then I honestly think they gave Florida. I think they gave Florida State momentum when
fact,
Florida State beat
fact.
them. And they had another goofy loss. They lost to
I can tell you
help me
right now.
out.
I'm on the schedule right now. They had a goofy loss against who was it? Texas A&M. My lord,
Texas
come on,
A&M.
man.
Lord have mercy.
Jesus, they
That
got
that
destroyed by
you
A&M.
you
That,
take away that A&M loss, and you take away that Florida State loss, I mean, you would have to give Brian Kelly a. You have to give him an A. I mean,
Yeah,
they still.
I, I mean they the roast of Florida State and A&M. They could have been in the talk for the playoffs,
Yeah.
and they still
I
talking
mean,
to
and
playoff all season.
the committee loved them. The committee laughing at us right now. The committee pretty much gave LSU an A grade until they laid the egg against Texas
A&M.
A&M. Yeah.
I'm gonna go give LSU a B plus. That A&M loss put a sour taste in my mouth. I
Yeah.
mean, if LSU would have won that game, Jimbo would be unemployed right now.
hmm
But because of LSU went at home, they saved his job for the time being.
hmm
I'm gonna give LSU a B plus. JD Daniels for the most part was very good.
One thing we know for sure: money can't buy everything.
Sure can.
If you think we're lying, ask A&M.
We'll talk about him in a few minutes. But I'm gonna give LSU a B plus for the season. They'll be playing. What are they playing? The bowl game. They'll be playing Purdue in the Citrus Bowl on January 2nd. Next year we're
That
talking about.
should be that should be a pretty good matchup because once again, I mean, Purdue was a couple of plays away from keeping that thing close against Michigan. A couple of plays away. That should be pretty good bowl game right there. That should really be a really good one.
Well, we call that the consolation prize for the for the conference championship losers. They played
Losses.
in the bowl
hmm
game. So next thing we're talking about the Tennessee Volunteers come off from 10-2 to their first
Oh,
10-win
Rocky Top.
season in quite some time. Hendon Hooker was
hmm
for sure the Heisman Trophy favorite before he tore his ACL against South
hmm
Carolina. I'm gonna give Tennessee an A minus, and the
I'm gonna
only
give
reason
them
I don't give them an A is because that tough loss to South Carolina.
I'm gonna give them an A minus also. I think one thing we can learn for sure. I've been preaching it all season long. College football games on the road are trap games. The
Every last
combined
one.
record, the combined record, the last time I kept track of it, it was set in right at 2-17 when both teams are ranked in the top 15. I
Oh
mean,
wow.
there's the only two teams that have won a game on the road when both teams are ranked in the top 15. Ohio State went to Penn State, snuck out of there with a win, and then Michigan drove down to Columbus and just drove Ohio State
Yeah, I
across one
remember that
side of the
game.
field. Yeah, other than that, it's any time both teams been in the top 15, the road team has gotten the worst end of the deal. And that's another team that I keep thinking about. I said, man, I keep telling everybody, you put Tennessee and Georgia on a neutral field, Tennessee beats them.
Oh no cap. Plus they had to play against the elements in the rain and the crowd. It was tough.
hmm Yeah.
But
I
let's
mean,
talk about.
I still feel bad. So I feel so bad for Hendon Hooker, man. I feel like he got snubbed so bad for
Oh
the
yeah, no
Heisman
doubt.
Trophy invitation. But man, I think Rocket Top fans should be happy
Oh no
overall the
doubt.
season they had. Yeah.
So let's go talk about those Bulldogs. Number one team in the country, number one overall seed in the college football playoff, SEC champions for back-to-back years. Let's go ahead and give it A plus. Give it A plus.
hmm
They're defending national champions, back-to-back SEC champions. Their quarterback was a Heisman Trophy finalist. Let's go ahead and call a spade a spade. A plus for Georgia. Do you agree?
hmm
Next team we're talking about the runners-up
Uh,
in the SEC
I
West, the Alabama Crimson Tide. They just missed out on the playoff appearance. They finished 10-2. They're for the first time in what a couple years they had two losses in the season. So now they're gonna face Kansas State in the Sugar Bowl. I'm gonna give Bama an A minus.
will give Bama. Yeah, right at about a B plus. I mean, the defense is terrible this year for Bama. It's terrible.
That's
I
not good for
mean,
Nick Saban standards.
you think about it. That same team that beat the A&M beat LSU. They almost beat Alabama also, and then I'm still questioning the officiating between Texas and Alabama. That is the worst officiating I have seen since God knows since probably since Clemson or Ohio State played since 2019. There was terrible officiating that cost the Texas that game. Texas had beaten them.
Oh yeah, Texas
Alabama defense
Alabama
was
game.
terrible.
Yeah,
Yeah, Texas.
that was
The
pretty
defense was
bad.
terrible for Alabama. Terrible this year.
And one
Terrible.
for Quinn Ewing getting hurt mid game. I think Texas would have won
hmm
that game. But I'm gonna give Bama
But
A minus because of Bryce Young and the ability for Bama to keep themselves in it with the if it wasn't for Bryce Young on that team, I think Bama would have been like an 8-win, 9-win team. You take Bryce Young on that team, them guys
and
would be.
people are still shocked that Bryce Young ain't pulled the plug. But I mean, I like what Bryce Young is doing. As far as we know, Bryce Young is still playing for Bama in that bowl game. That's good. I mean, that's great for college football.
Oh
And he's
yeah, because
playing.
if he didn't play, I think Bama would have lost that game for sure.
I mean, the opt-outs are just ridiculous. I mean, you gotta leave on a good term.
All right, next thing we're gonna talk about the third place team, the SEC East. The South Carolina Gamecocks finished 19th in the country, 8-4 in the regular season. Finished the regular season off strong, despite losing to Florida. They ripped off two big wins in a row, including
Mm-hmm.
Tennessee and Clemson. I'm gonna give
Mm-hmm.
South Carolina a B plus, closing on the A minus margin. What do you give them?
I would give them a B plus too, and I'm still questioning. They when you think about it, you got LSU's got two terrible losses. Florida State, Florida State, like you said, they made some questionable play calling, and I had to put South Carolina in there, Charles. Those are three teams that that was right at the doorstep of playing for a New Year's Six bowl.
Oh,
I
no
mean,
doubt, no doubt.
I
That
mean,
Florida loss hurt South Carolina.
yeah, that they got embarrassed against Florida. I mean,
They
they
did.
got embarrassed against
I
Florida. I
ain't
mean,
expect Florida to win
terrible.
that game.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And South Carolina opened up what a 3-point favor. I think they was over Florida. 3-point favor, something like that.
Yeah, and I think Florida beat it with a 30-6,
Mm-hmm. You know
31
what
to
I'm
six,
saying?
something like that.
Yeah. And then they come out of nowhere and they beat. God, they beat
They
Tennessee
put
bad.
Tennessee, they put 63 on Tennessee.
Yeah, bad.
So let's go talk about the next team, the third place team from the West. And that we gotta talk about them already. Let's talk about Kentucky. Let's talk about the Wildcats of Kentucky. 7-5 record once again a bowl game. What you gonna give old Kentucky Blue? What would you grade Kentucky Blue? They'll be
I
playing
would have to
Iowa
give them
in
a.
the Music City Bowl.
I would have to give them a C plus.
C plus, I'm gonna
C
give them a
plus.
C. I'm gonna give them a C. They faltered down the stretch. You
Yeah,
look at
they
their
they they
schedule
on
down the
they
stretch.
only big win was at Florida. That was
Mm,
it.
I'm gonna say that Mississippi State game is pretty big too.
Too. Mm.
But that Vanderbilt loss put a bad taste in my mouth. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, they could have been a C plus team with they to beat
What was
Vanderbilt.
they? Did they finish the conference with a losing record?
No, they finished at 4-4.
4-4. Oh, right at borderline 500.
Right. No, actually, no. They had a losing record. They went 3-5.
3-5. See, that sounds about right. Yeah. And then, and the fan base is still trying to figure out how do you announce your coach contract extension coming off a loss.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
Louisville win was huge for
Mm-hmm.
Kentucky. But you look at it, you beat Florida, but you still have a losing record. You have the same record as Florida, the team you beat.
Mm-hmm.
You just have one win
And
over them.
conference play.
You lose against Florida, you'll finish 6-6, and Florida be 7-5. So that Florida and Kentucky game separate themselves by that one loss. They both
Mm-hmm.
finished 3-5 in the conference.
Mm.
And then I'm gonna give Kentucky a C as well. Let's go to the SEC West. Let's talk about Ole Miss, another team that struggled down the stretch.
Mm-hmm.
They finished 4-4 conference, 8-4 overall. Where would you grade the Rebels?
I will just see. Last year they won. They was
They won
last
like
year was their
11
first.
games last year, right?
Yeah, last year was their first 10-11 win season, and was it program history?
Yeah, they beat Baylor in the Sugar Bowl.
Yeah, and it was the first time they ever won 10-11 games of program history, something like that. They started the season off 81 or 71. I don't know, man. I would have to give them a B, B
I'm,
minus. I mean, Lane
I'm,
Kiffin, he needs to work. Lane Kiffin needs to give up the play call, and he made some questionable play calling against Alabama. I think that cost him that game.
I'm gonna give them a B as well. Um, I mean, that Kentucky was big, but down the stretch, they lost a tough game. They should have lost. The Bama game is one of them. They should have won at
Mm-hmm.
home. So I think preventing them from getting an A minus, I'm gonna give him a B. That's still solid for 8-win season. You did lose Matt Corral to the draft. You did
Mm-hmm.
get John Reese Plumlee from UCF. He actually had a pretty good season for them. But I think the lack of a true passing quarterback really
Mm-hmm.
prevented Ole Miss from being
But
far.
he's not a bad quarterback.
He's
That
not, but he's a run first though. Matt Corral
yeah,
was actually
what is
more of a
it?
gunslinger.
Jackson Dart sounds about right. Yeah,
Oh,
Jackson.
Jackson Dart. I'm sorry, my
Yeah.
bad. I thought Reese Plumlee transferred from Ole Miss to UCF. Okay, never
Hmm.
mind. That's
But
I got.
they're if I've been trying to add up. I want to say they what 1-3 or 2-2 the last 4 games of the season right now.
Well, let's go look at their schedule before we go to our next team. Ole Miss did struggle. Now they finished 4-4. They finished third, fourth, tied for third in the SEC West. The last 4 games, they lost against LSU. They beat A&M by 3. Lost to them by 6. Lost to Arkansas by 15.
So they 1-3 in the last 4 games.
Actually, 1-4. They actually lost to Mississippi State as well. So they 1-4 in the last
Whoa.
4 games.
And
Five games.
who are they playing bowl game?
Texas Tech in the Texas Bowl.
Mm.
And
Yeah,
Texas Tech had a pretty good season too
Lane
for their
Kiffin needs to get
standards.
in there and get a win. I mean, you don't want to finish the season 1-5 in the SEC. I mean, that could
Yeah,
turn the heat up on you.
I ain't gonna lie. He did sign an extension this past off season when he was rumored to go to
Mm-hmm.
Auburn, but he signed a multi-year extension this past off season. Let's talk about the next SEC team. Let's talk about Arkansas, another team with high hopes, faltered
Ooh,
down the stretch. They're six
Lord.
and six. They're getting ready for their showdown against Kansas in their bowl game. Where you got the Razorbacks?
I would have to give them a D.
A D, yeah, man. They're
D.
about a C minus to a D plus for me.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Another team was terrible in conference play.
oh man,
Terrible.
those guys were 3-5. They have the same record as us. KJ
Mm-hmm.
Jefferson was claimed to be one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the SEC, and those guys was just inconsistent all year. Arkansas
Mm-hmm.
did salvage a big. They had a tough loss to the end of the year
And
against
they was
Missouri.
coming off of what 9-win season last year. I think nine,
Yeah,
8 or 9 win
19 win
season.
season. I think they
Yeah.
beat Penn State in the Gator Bowl last
Mm-hmm.
year. I mean, yeah, I think Arkansas came back down to reality this year after all those high hopes at the beginning of the year. I'm gonna give them a D plus. Let's talk about Missouri, the team that Arkansas lost to the end of the year. Now Missouri, were at one point was god awful, but they turned it up late.
Mm-hmm.
They're both eligible. I'm gonna give Mizzou a C minus.
Missouri.
I'm gonna give them a C minus.
Uh,
Their defense is pretty good.
yeah, I would give them a C minus also. I would like for Missouri to give Ohio State some kind of formula they use to keep Georgia at 16 points. Well, we would like to have that. Yeah.
Well, you better watch their film, or cause they held Georgia to 16 points for three and a half
Mm-hmm.
quarters of the game. So let's talk about the next team. We're gonna talk about Auburn, another team that used to be a
Ooh.
powerhouse in the SEC.
Mm-hmm.
They've been bottom of the barrel since Gus Malzahn been gone. 2-6 in conference, first losing season in conference play in quite a while. They've been 5-7. Where would you grade Auburn? Now they have Hugh Freeze at the helm. He took the job. Where would you put Auburn at on your list? I'm gonna give them a D plus.
I have to get Auburn an F.
I'm tough with it, cuz.
I'm gonna have to give them an F.
You'll give them an F.
F.
So where would you grade Vanderbilt and Texas A&M? A&M get
Vanderbilt.
A&M will get a D minus from me for beating LSU because they got an F before they beat LSU. So I'm gonna give them a D minus.
I'm
Vanderbilt, I'm
gonna
gonna give
give
them a D plus.
Vanderbilt. I give Vanderbilt a D plus.
Same with me. And I'm
They
giving
beat
A&M a D
Florida.
minus.
They beat Florida for the first time at home since what 1970 sounds about right. Nine to
1980.
1980. And they was the first team to actually hold Florida less than 200 yards rushing all season long.
Yeah, they only for under 100 yards rushing. Florida had
Mm-hmm.
45 yards rushing that game.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna be as generous with A&M. They got to get an F. They was terrible
Even with the
all
LSU win at home,
season. They are terrible.
Even with the LSU winning at home, you can't give them some leeway.
They was terrible all season long. I have to give them an F. Terrible.
Terrible.
That offense couldn't get going. That offense couldn't get going for nothing. I mean, it was just
Well, Hayes King is transferring from A&M, so he have to worry about that crap no more. So A&M they haven't lost a lot of recruits this offseason.
mm-hmm.
It's been tough sledding for Jimbo and the crew. I just hope for the love of God that they be 8 wins next year will be a
I
milestone
know.
for A&M compared to what they
They're
had this year.
they're in a tough situation right now. The current buyout is $72 million to get Jimmo out of there. I'm like, where are you getting that money from? You had a $28 million roster. He denied every bit of it.
Man, that man, listen, y'all got a hard time getting that nigga out of there, cuz.
I'm telling you, it's a dumpster fire over there.
Boy, listen, I thought Kevin Sumlin was bad. Jimbo
Yeah.
really showed me he making it hard to coach over there.
Well, at one point, there was a comparison between the 50 game mark,
Yeah, I
and
remember
believe it or
Kevin
not,
Sumlin. Kevin Sumlin had
Kevin
a better
Sumlin had a
record.
better record.
Yes,
Yeah.
he did. All right, we're going to the
So
Pac-12.
that is a F plus. I mean I mean flat out. A&M was terrible, terrible this season.
So you'll get no benefit with the LSU win.
There was terrible, terrible.
All right, we're
Only
going to the
reason they beat
Pac-12,
A&M because it was
man.
home.
All right, we're going to the Pac-12. We're going to talk. We already talked about Stanford. So let's talk about the Pac-12 champs and Utah Utes. Utah finished the regular season, I believe, with an 11-2 record. They'll be playing Penn State in the Rose Bowl game. So how would you rank the Utah Utes?
Mm.
I'm gonna give
I gotta give.
Utah an A minus.
I would have to give Utah an A minus also. And I'm telling you right now, I got a lot of love for Utah right now.
I
Because
do too.
without Utah, we'll be
I
playing
think
in the
Utah
Rose
could beat
Bowl.
Penn State.
Yes, that that should be a highly rated bowl game.
Yeah,
Should be.
definitely,
That should be
definitely.
a very good bowl game, Utah. And then I'm not really sure, man. I don't know how Penn State's going to handle them boys because
They're
them boys
physical.
coming off a tough loss to Ohio State last year.
Yeah.
They ran my blood pressure up. They should have beaten Ohio State. You take away that tremendous catch by Jackson Smith and Jiglet, Ohio State loses that game. I mean, Charles, I like Utah by 14 points. I just don't. I don't know if Penn State gonna be able to keep. I don't think Penn State's gonna be able to keep pace with the fire intensity that Utah is gonna come in that game. Utah's gonna come with a lot of fire intensity in that game.
It
They
went for
came
that.
so close to beating Ohio State last year.
It went for that catch by Smith and Jimba last year. Utah could be going in as two-time
Yeah,
Rose Bowl champs.
two-time Rose Bowl.
So let's talk about USC, the runner-up in the Pac-12. They finished 11-2, and they'll be playing Tulane in the Cotton Bowl. Well, how do you grade USC and their Heisman Trophy winner Caleb
I
Williams?
would have to give. Let's see. I'm actually not surprised. I mean, I argue with Michael all season long in the off season. I said Lincoln Riley is going to go over there and do what Lincoln Riley's best at, taking taking a good quarterback and winning. Oh my! How many Heisman has Lincoln
I
Riley
was
had
just
to
about
put
to
his
say.
finger on?
So he has Baker
Man,
Mayfield, he
Baker
has
Mayfield,
Kyler Murray, he has Caleb Williams,
Kyler Murray.
and he could have got a fourth one with Jalen Hurts. He went for Joe Burrow.
God, man, it's insane. But
All
I
four
mean,
quarterbacks, or three of the four are drafted. Hurt,
mhm,
Murray, and Baker. And then Caleb
mhm,
Williams get drafted as well. So there'll be four quarterbacks he has molded into NFL
mhm.
starters.
I would have to give the USC Trojans a B plus because Charles. The reason why I got to give them a B plus because even when they had was it Clay Helton, they was winning at what 7, 8 games. Sounds about right.
Yeah,
It's just they just hired somebody that can elevate their offense, but the defense still ain't gotten up the part,
right.
and that's something that Lincoln Riley just ain't got a reputation for his defensive play of his team is just not up to par.
at all, at all.
And then they lost. I mean, you would have thought after losing to Utah the way they did, on a 2-point conversion, they'll have a little bit more fire and intensity going into that Pac-12 championship. But man, I mean, Utah went in there and threw a haymaker, knocked them out, beat them by 22 points.
All right. Next thing we're talking about Bo Nix and Oregon. Oregon finished either 9-3, 7-2 in the Pac-12. Oregon finished ranked number 15 in the country. Where would you grade Bo Nix and the Ducks?
Let's see. You got it's not, they always say it's not how you start, it's how you finish. But man, that 40-3 game against Georgia, I'm still having a hard time overlooking that game. I mean, there was a lot of hype building that game. Whew, I'll have to give them a. I'm gonna give them a generous B minus because believe it or not, Bo Nix did what people say he couldn't do. He actually got out there and threw the ball better than he did ever at Auburn. I'll have to give him a B minus. He got out there and threw the ball better. And they had a goofy loss, and I want to say, was it a loss against UCLA kept them out the Pac-12 championship?
Loss that prevented them from being in the Pac-12 championship was Oregon State and Washington.
Washington.
All right. Speaking of Washington, talk about the Huskies. Huskies are now they finished second in the Pac-12 via the tiebreaker against Utah. Oregon, Washington, Utah all finished 7-2. But because they had head losses, Utah took over the second spot. So where would you rate the Washington Huskies who finished?
I'm going to give the Washington Huskies a B plus. And speaking of that, we've been talking about it all night. That fella right there, Michael Penix, is another guy that got snubbed for a Heisman bid.
Man, you see what he did in the end. You know when they're in the end of the Big 12 those days. But what he did in Washington as a passer, man, it wasn't for that little hiccup in the middle part of the year. Michael Penix Jr. could have been up there with Hendon Hooker and C.J. Stroud for the Heisman.
After the Heisman voting this year, I highly recommend we move to American Idol kind of start voting for the Heisman Trophy. Because I love my Buckeyes, but overall, C.J. Stroud performance did not deserve him in the top 4. I mean, you threw for 75 yards. You threw for 75 yards against Northwestern.
Ew.
You went 4 games in a row throwing questionable interceptions. I mean, I just wasn't blown away with C.J. Stroud performance this year. I mean, my top 4 that I had for the Heisman Trophy, I had Blake Corum, I had Caleb Williams, I had Hendon Hooker, and I had Michael Penix. Those were my top 4 right there for the Heisman Trophy.
I mean, it wasn't for Blake Corum getting hurt against Ohio. I think game before Ohio State, he'd have been going there instead of probably C.J. Stroud in. But I think while I was looking at it before we went live, Caleb Williams finished number 1. Max Duggan finished second. Stetson Bennett finished third, and then C.J. Stroud finished last.
And I mean, like I'm still trying to figure out how Stetson Bennett gets there. I'm like, man,
did he really have a better year than C.J. Stroud? Is the question.
Stetson Bennett. I haven't looked at it. He didn't. I don't know. I mean, what is Georgia's big win outside of Tennessee?
I guess we're not looking at team wins, we're looking at individuality. But let's go ahead and continue. Let's go ahead and rapid fire through these. Let's go ahead and do. Let me go back to it. Let's go ahead and do UCLA.
UCLA. That's a good pick right there. Let's see. People wanted people are actually. There was rumors the fan base wasn't too happy with Chip Kelly, but man, I know you're not going to the Pac-12. I mean, that quarterback, was it, uh, Denard? What is his name? DTR, something like that.
Yeah, DTR.
DTR. I would have to give them a B plus. They had a really good season.
I'm gonna give him yeah, I'm gonna B plus, close to an A minus. What about Washington State?
Washington State. I really didn't get the opportunity to watch Washington State. You would have to tell me they lost this and they found a
All right,
record. I didn't. I don't
all
think
right.
I saw them at
So
all this
Washington
season.
State is 7-5 in the Pac-12. Their best win came at the hands of. Actually, they have no big wins at all. Their losses came against Washington at home. They lost to Utah. They lost to Oregon State, and they lost to USC in Washington in Oregon.
So pretty much,
They lost
you
all the
just
big games.
summed it. All five of the big games they lost them. Man,
Yeah, I'm gonna give them a C plus. What
I
about
give them
Oregon State?
Oregon State. Oregon State is ranked in the
They're
top
number four.
25 in rushing this season.
They're number
I would have to
14
give
in the
them a.
country.
Hmm.
What was your
I
grade?
had, I would have to give them a B plus because I really think. I mean, that's gonna be a hard game for Florida to win. Hard game for Florida to win.
Oh yeah, no doubt. You look at their stats this year going into that Florida game, which they were playing against in the Las Vegas Bowl. Florida's have one of the worst rush defenses in the country. Both Jordan Travis and Ty Corbin or Trey Corbin, one of the two, both ran for 100 yards against Florida defense.
Hmm.
You look at
And
Oregon,
then,
they barely throw the
uh,
football. They lead the
and
pass at
I wonder when the last time Florida lost three bowl games back to back, and that's actually up for grabs this season. Florida lose this year, that's three bowl games back to back.
yeah, it starts back at the Cotton Bowl. Then they lost the
Hmm.
Gasparilla Bowl last year. Three bowl games consecutive. I mean, man,
Yeah, when last time Florida's done that, I mean, it can very well happen. Oregon State is going to be a challenge for them.
Oregon State got three rushers over 500 yards, including a leading rusher with 970.
Hmm.
And their quarterback barely throw the football. He was threw the ball for 1,200 yards all year. So that tells you that they're gonna hit you in the mouth with three different types of runners.
And then
Let's,
AR opting out. That's a huge loss for Florida.
and
Huge
with
loss.
Florida offensive line, we'll see how Jack Miller operates with the receivers we have going into that game. Let's go ahead and go with some of these bad teams in the Pac-12 before we head to the Big 12. How would you grade Arizona?
Arizona.
They went
Man,
5-7.
5-7. I would have to give them a D. I didn't get the opportunity to see them this season. I know. I saw a big update. Is it Emory Jones is on his fourth airplane somewhere else?
He's transferring too.
He's transferring again.
Wow. Arizona State was a bad idea from the start.
I'm telling you, it's like he showed up, started some fire there, and got up out of there. I mean, man. I mean, Arizona is another program that's fallen off. That was pretty good in the Pac-12 for consecutive years.
Yep, they announced that Arizona State quarterback Emory Jones expected to enter the transfer portal for the second time.
Mm.
Wow. Um, I'm gonna grade the rest of these teams right quick. Washington State, Arizona, and Cal will probably all get D's, and then a D minus for Arizona State, and then Stanford and Colorado are both getting F.
Yep, I like your graders. I can't disagree with them.
All right, we going to the Big 12 before we end off in the Big 10. All right, we're gonna start off. We're gonna start from the bottom and work our way up to the top. All right. Let's start with the worst team in the Big 12, which was by far, I believe it was the West Virginia Mountaineers, if I'm not mistaken.
Now we going off of schedule rankings.
No, we're going
I
by
mean,
so worst team in the Big 12 by ranking by by standing is Iowa State. So Iowa
okay.
State was 4-8 overall, 1-8 in the Big 12. How would you grade the Cyclones?
Cyclones. I had two terrible seasons back to back. I have to get an F.
F for what Iowa State. What about I'm gonna give Iowa State F as well. West Virginia, JT Daniels transfer. He didn't look too good at all in that making a field goal. I'm gonna give West Virginia D minus.
D minus for West Virginia. I give them a D minus also.
All right, Kansas started the season on 5-0, but when Jaden Daniels went down, they finished the season 1-6. They finished 3-6 in the Big 12, but they are going to a bowl game. They will be Arkansas in a battle of 6-6 teams. I'm gonna give Kansas a C minus just because they finished 6-6.
So we got to be more generous than that for Kansas. Come on, man. Kansas made college game day, y'all. We got to give them a B plus. Now, come on,
Oh,
man.
that's that's too generous, cuz. I'm gonna get at best a C plus. That's all you get it from
Charles,
me.
they made college game day. That's the
They
first time
lost
they got
though,
college
Justin.
games day in the football program history. They've been, I think they had it 7 times. They had 7, 8 times for the basketball team. I gotta give the old Jayhawks a B plus.
I'm gonna give them a C plus. That's being nice. But really, I should give him a C minus. But let's go to the next team. Let's go to Oklahoma. Brent Venables' first year wasn't a
Oh
good one. They
Lord.
finished 6-6. They also
Mm.
was 3-6 in the Big 12. I'm gonna give Oklahoma a very disappointing C minus.
That's why I asked you how are we grading these teams because they are the worst team in the Big 12. In
Ooh, you
my
tough.
opinion, they are the worst team in the Big 12. And I hate to tell the fan base, Florida State's gonna put it on 'em.
So what would you grade the Sooners?
I would have to give them an F.
Oh my lord.
I would have to give
F
them
for
an F.
Oklahoma. You heard it right for Walker City. He said an F for Boomer
Okay.
Sooner.
I have to
Next
give
team
them an
we're
F.
talking about, the Baylor Bears out of Waco. They finished 6-6 as well. They finished 4-5, right ahead of Oklahoma. I'm gonna give Baylor a C minus as well.
I really like the C minus also. Now, granted, who did they beat last year? Did they win did
No,
they
they
win the
lost to
Cotton
Ole
Bowl?
Miss in the Sugar Bowl.
They lost Ole Miss in the Sugar Bowl, but they had a tremendous fallback this year. They actually was the favorite to win the Big 12 and then win the
Right.
Big 12.
No, they finished middle of the pack.
And then Kansas State was what? Man, they were no favorite to finish in the Big 12 as champion. So
Right.
I would have to give Baylor a C plus. They
C
definitely had
plus.
a drop off, and it could get uglier. Because last I checked, Dave Aranda's out of there, right?
Is he fired?
No, he took another job somewhere.
Dave Miranda?
Took another job somewhere.
Really? Dave Miranda took the job and now he's still at Baylor. He's still at Baylor.
Still at Baylor? Oh,
Yeah, he's still at Baylor, but he's probably talks for new jobs though. All right. What about Oklahoma State?
Oklahoma State. Oh man, they finished the season with 8-4, 75, something like that. Yeah,
Nah, Oklahoma State finished 7-5.
7-5.
They finished fifth in the Big 12. They finished 4-5 in conference.
They was second favorites to win the Big 12. Now, granted,
They
they
lost to Notre
suffered a
Dame in
loss.
the Fiesta
They
Bowl
lost to
last year.
Notre Dame. I mean, who was their losses to this season?
They had quite a few. Let's go ahead and talk about those now. They lost to TCU by 3. They lost to
Mm-hmm.
Kansas State 48-0. They lost to
48-0.
Kansas by 21. They lost to Oklahoma by 15, and they even lost to West Virginia. They'll play Wisconsin in the Rate Bowl.
So they lost to two teams with losing records, and they coming off
And
a
they
win.
actually lost to the team that you called the worst in the Big 12. So if you give Oklahoma an F, what would you give Oklahoma State?
I have to get them a D plus. I
B
give them a
plus?
D plus. I
I'm
can
gonna give them
offset it
C
with a D
minus
plus.
just because the
D
Oklahoma
minus.
lost.
You said a D minus.
Yeah, I'm gonna give Oklahoma State a C minus, same grade I gave Baylor. That
Let me
48
see.
to nothing loss, that West Virginia loss, and Oklahoma loss was all bad.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna give them a C minus. Texas Tech, a team who was supposed to be at the bottom of the Big 12, they finished fourth, 5-4 conference with a 75 record. What would you give the Red Raiders?
Let's see. Texas Tech.
I'm gonna go over their
They
schedule as
big.
well.
I would have to give them a B. I would have to give them a B. Like Charles, like what did you give them a B for? Charles, they suck some momentum from Texas. They suck some momentum from
Yeah, that's a
Texas.
tough loss Texas took on the road against the Red Raiders.
Mm-hmm.
They
Yep.
did lose a tough one to Baylor, 45-17. Lost to TCU by 10. They did beat Kansas and Iowa State and Oklahoma to end the season. They'll be playing Ole Miss in the Texas Bowl. I'm gonna give
Yeah.
Texas Tech a B minus.
Yeah. It's crazy that we can give a team that went 7-5 that high. I mean,
Right.
they suck some momentum from Texas when they beat Texas.
Speaking of Texas, Texas finished third in the Big 12, a half game back of Kansas State. They finished 8-4, 6-3 in the Big 12, number 20 in the country. What would you give the Horns and Coach Sark in his first year?
Let's
I mean,
see.
second year.
Well, let's see. We're gonna do it in my world. In my world, Alabama lost to Texas in my world. That is the worst officiating I have seen since Ohio State lost to Clemson back in 2000. That is the worst officiating. Let's see. I wonder how they're gonna be next year. I think they run into a crowded quarterback room. You got Quinn Ayers and then you got the Manning boy coming in. I mean, I don't
Oh yeah,
know.
Arch Manning
I
is
don't.
coming in next year. I forgot.
I mean,
Hudson Curd, Hudson Curd transferred. So
Charles, it's one football to throw. I don't know how you're gonna sell to that with Archie Manning and Quinn Ayers. I don't think Archie Manning's gonna want to set out. I mean, but we'll worry about that some other day. But I will have to give Texas overall. I give them a oh man.
I'm
I
gonna give
give I
Texas
give
a B
I
plus.
give a B minus. I give him a B minus.
So between a B minus and B plus.
Yeah, B minus. I give him a B minus.
All right. The runners up in the Big 12 championship, the TCU Horned Frogs. I'm gonna give them an A minus.
I would have to give. Let's see, man. There was an old saying: "A cat has 9 lives." And if we saw any resemblance of somebody that had 9 lives this season, it got to be TCU. I bashed TCU saying that they did not deserve a playoff. But man, seeing Max Duggan go out there and
Woo.
lay it all on the line, the dude had 85 yards rushing to get his team to overtime. He's still touching my heart to sit there and see him hurt like that because all he wanted was to bring that school a conference championship. I would have
Right.
to give the TCU Horned Frogs an A plus, and I'm
Oh,
saying right now, I'm gonna say it right now, they're gonna upset Michigan.
I'm
I'm,
with you with that. I do have
I
Michigan
think
up
I
alert
think
in
they're
that
gonna
game.
upset Michigan.
I think they is too. I got them up alert as well. I'm gonna give them an A minus, and I'm gonna say why that Kansas State loss should never happen. They
Hmm.
supposed to beat Kansas State. They beat
Yes,
themselves
man.
up in
People
that
still
Kansas State loss.
question why are you keeping the ball out of your starting quarterback hand when you in
So
goal to goal situation like that when he don't gas the defense like
I
that.
was gonna give them an A plus, but that loss was so upsetting to me. I
You
dropped them
need
back to an A minus.
you needed 1 yard and you traveling 5 yards to get 1 yard.
Yeah.
I
That's
mean,
true.
I don't get the play calling right there.
So
But
I'm gonna.
man, I'm telling you, Charles, I'm telling you, some of the toughest teams to face is coming off losses like that. I'm telling you, Michigan right now is a 9-point favorite over TCU, but man, I'm telling you, man, I'm telling you, I really think we're gonna look back and we're gonna have a national championship game that nobody saw coming, and it's gonna be TCU and Ohio State.
Whew, tough. We'll see what happens. I'm gonna give Kansas State the Big 12 champions an A plus.
A plus. Let's see,
Yeah,
yeah,
yes,
Kansas State now. I like what you gave them because like I just said, I just praised TCU, but man, Kansas State quarterback got hurt and they was up by 18 when they was playing TCU in the beginning of the season.
right.
So yeah, I would have to give them an A plus. And I wonder, man. I mean, Bryce Young ain't set out yet, but I
Hey,
don't know what the point spread on that game is. But without Bryce Young, Kansas State could very well win that game. They could
oh
very
yeah,
well
no
win that
doubt.
game without Bryce
And
Young.
and here's why I say that Nick Saban's not good in Sugar Bowl games. Let's not
Mm-hmm.
forget
Oh
over the
yeah,
years, Nick Saban's
yeah.
bad in Sugar Bowl games.
He is
Remember
bad.
the year that Zeke ran all over him.
Mm-hmm.
Then the year Oklahoma beat it with Trevor Knight. Then they
Mm-hmm.
also lost to Utah, who's undefeated. And
Mm-hmm.
now they're playing another Sugar Bowl game. Nick Saban
So
lost the
right,
last 3 Sugar Bowl games.
three Sugar Bowl games. Yep.
That's not college football playoff Sugar Bowl games. That's not college football playoff.
Mm-hmm.
Because they did beat Clemson in the Sugar Bowl game. That was a college football playoff game. But the Sugar Bowl games that doesn't count as CFP football games, he's lost them.
He's 0-3. He's 0-3, folks.
So I'm gonna give Kansas State the upset nine in that bowl game. Now we're in the conference that we all been waiting for. The final conference of the night, the Big Ten. And we're gonna start from the bottom. Start with the worst team in the conference, the Northwestern Wildcats. They finished 1-8 in the conference and 1-11 overall. What would you give the Wildcats from Northwestern? I'm giving them
Well,
an F.
let's see. They didn't win a single game on American soil this season, right?
Yeah, they won. They beat Nebraska in Jer- in
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry, I'm being too hard on. 'Em. They did beat Nebraska.
but it wasn't on USO though. That was in Ireland.
Oh.
So you was right. They even won USO this year. They lost to Duke. They lost to Southern Illinois. They started the season 1-0 and lost 11 straight. They lost to Duke,
let's
Southern
see.
Illinois, Miami, Ohio. That's horrible
Let's
losses
see.
right there.
Was it Pat Fitzgerald has had two terrible seasons back to back?
Yeah, cause no, last year they went to the Big 12 championship and played y'all.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Let's see. Well, let's see. I think last year sometime. Sometime I'm looking at last year before I grade these teams. Man, you
I'm
went
gonna give
1-11
Northwestern
this
an F.
season. I would have to give them an F too. An F.
Uh, what about Rutgers? 1-8 in the conference, 48 overall.
4-8 overall, 1-8 in the conference. Let's
I'm gonna
see.
give them a D plus.
I would have to give them an F.
Another F as well.
Yep, because they actually brought Greg Schiano back. This is the second time coaching at Rutgers, right?
That's correct, because he coached Ray Rice back in the day.
And I don't see where the change is. I mean, I can't overlook that. I have to give them an F.
What about Indiana? 2-7 in the conference, 40 overall. I'm giving them an F as well.
Yes, because didn't they fire? Did they fire
The head
the
coach?
head coach there? Who's the head coach
I
there?
believe so.
Tom Allen. I think he was released, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Because they had that Cinderella season come off the COVID season. They been good since then.
At all. Michael Penix transferred and left, and they ain't been nothing ever since.
Hmm.
Uh, Speaking of firing, Scott Frost got fired this year. Thank the Lord. Nebraska finished 3-6 in the conference and still finished 4-8. I'm gonna give Nebraska a D.
I'm going to give Nebraska an F. Because let me tell
Another
you
F.
something, y'all.
Yeesh.
Let me tell you something. I want to know who in the hell is controlling the money spending there. if you just let Scott Frost suck halfway through the season, you could have saved $5 million for the program.
Right.
Terrible. I mean, what was I think the buyout was what $12 million. So I think it was like 10, 11. They fired. I think it was like 10.5 that he walked out with. If they just would let him suck for half of the season, the buyout could have been half of the price. I have to
That.
give him an L.
All right. Wisconsin 4-5 in the conference, 6-6 overall. I'm giving the Badgers a C minus.
Whew, you've been very generous right now in the Big Ten,
And I don't talk
Charles.
about you saying nobody did as much. You gave Kansas a B plus, and they went the same record as Wisconsin. I'll give them a C minus. And Graham Mertz is transferring.
I'm going to have to get the Wisconsin Badgers an F, Charles. They
Oh
have fallen
Lord, that's three. That's four in a
tremendously.
row.
They have fallen off tremendously.
So you give it Wisconsin an F.
I have to give Wisconsin an F.
All right. What would you grade Michigan State? 3-6 in the conference, 5-7 overall.
Let's see. They coach still. I mean,
Mel
let's
Tucker.
see. Let's see. Last year, everybody was all excited. They
They
went
went to
11-2.
the Cotton Bowl and they beat who they beat last year? They beat Pitt. They beat Pittsburgh in the Cotton Bowl game.
And they finished the season what 11-2, something like that.
Yeah.
Let's see. They had 21 people on that roster that was transferred. And man, Mel
Peyton
Tucker, you get
Thorne was
Mel,
so
Mel
trash
Tucker,
this year.
you get your money, Mel Tucker. You know what? You got what? You getting what? 9.5 million.
Yeah.
You brought back. You brought back two good. You brought back your two starting wide receivers. You brought
The
back your
quarterback
starting
still sucks
quarterback.
though.
You brought back. You brought back your worst pass defense that you had the season before. They had the worst pass defense in FBS last year. Let's see. You're on bowl eligible. How do you go from a New Year's Six bowl to not even being bowl eligible? I can't swallow that. I have to give
So
you a
what
D
you give
plus.
them? A D
A D
plus.
plus. D plus.
All right. Minnesota 5-4 in the conference, 8-4 overall. 10 or more your final year. That nigga been there for like 6 years, dog. What would you
Let's
give
see.
Minnesota?
Well, the boat ain't rolling right now for sure. Let's see.
I'm gonna give Minnesota a C.
Let's see. Oh man, I mean, I still wonder how would their season be last year. Well, we can't talk about last year if Muhammad Ibrahim never got hurt. But I like the coach there. I'm trying to rank his name right now. I can't think of his
TJ
name.
Fleck,
PJ Fleck. I really like PJ Fleck. I like his energy. And you said they finished the season what again?
8-4.
8-4. And who did they suffer losses to?
Well, their losses this year came at the hands of Penn State,
Penn
Purdue,
State,
Illinois,
Purdue.
Iowa. Uh, that's it.
Okay, so let's see. You lost to Iowa. That's a bad loss. Illinois is not a bad loss. Illinois was fighting for a conference championship. Penn State in the New Year's Six Bowl, and Michigan back-to-back years in college football playoff. I have to give Minnesota. I have to give them a B minus. B minus. B minus.
All right, Maryland 4-5 in the conference, 75 overall. I would give Maryland a C minus. C minus for the church.
That's another program that kind of worries me that they remind me so much of USC. The defense seems like it's never going to get up to par. I mean, you got a talented quarterback. Well, sometimes he can get a little bit happy back there. He makes a little bit of bad decisions. They finished what 75. Man, when the last time Maryland finished the season ranked? That's why I'm having a hard time ranking them higher
Yeah,
than a D minus. When
you
the
give him
last
a
time
D
they finished the
minus?
season ranked?
Well, you tough. A D minus?
Man, I have to give them a D minus.
All right. Iowa, 5-4, 75 overall. I'm giving him
Man,
a D plus.
I was gonna give Iowa. Let's see, man. Let's see. I don't like the hire that that Kurt France did of hiring his son as the offensive coordinator. That's terrible right there. I mean, our year in year out hard nosed defense, offense, always seven grades back what defense is playing. But overall, I'm gonna have to give them a C, a C.
You nice, because I give him a D plus. All right, we're going to the top five teams. Starting off with Illinois, 5-4 in the conference, 8-4 overall. What are you rating the line nine?
Let's see. Oh, Brett Beatem. I love me some Brett Beatem. I love his energy for the game. Oh, I love me some Brett Beatem. Let's see. Man, let's see. Questionable. Same thing. There's some questionable officiating between Michigan and Illinois. Them boys can easily be 9-3. Easily be 9-3. But we'll talk about that another day. I'm gonna give them boys a B minus.
I agree. B minus C plus area for Brett Bielema first year at Illinois. Great season for those guys. Round off number four in the Big 12, Big 10, the the Big 10 West champions, the Purdue Boilermakers, 8-4 overall, 6-3 in the conference. I'm gonna give Purdue a B minus.
Let's see. Purdue. I watched the Big Ten championship game. Aiden O'Connell, couple of throws, man. I wish he could take them back, man. That game could be different. He takes those throws back. I mean, I was on Twitter and I was tweeting. I said, man, this is why you don't need to get rid of conference division because Michigan did not go in there with any kind of energy to face Purdue, and Purdue just wanted it more. I'm like, man, Michigan just don't understand. Purdue's gonna never win a national championship, but if you can win a conference championship, that could mean a lot to that school.
Right.
And they showed up with a lot of emotions in that game, even though they lost. I mean, it was ugly late, but I'm going to grade them off for the way they played in that game. I'm going to give them a B minus for the season. B
B
minus.
minus. Top three. Number 11 Penn State, 7-2 in the conference, 10-2 overall. I will give
Oh,
the Penn State Nittany Lions a B plus.
Charles, Charles. Let's not get caught up in this, Charles. I love, I love, I love the environment that Penn State offers. That's nothing like Happy Valley at nighttime. I still keep telling everybody if that game is at nighttime, Ohio State does not win that game this season. Charles, when is the last time James Franklin has given that program a marquee win? Charles, they gave up 400 yards rushing to Michigan. It was bad, Charles. 400 yards rushing to Michigan. Charles, Penn State recruit. They recruit, man. I'm just wondering they're just not developing these guys or what, but they recruit at a high level year in year out. I'm just trying to I just think their last marquee win is when they beat Ohio State. Since
Right.
Franklin in their last four or five seasons. But I don't know, Charles. Like, where you going with this, Justin? Charles, I mean, they finished the season 10-2, but I'm not seeing any marquee wins that's blowing me away with them. Even it's like it's like every time he finished with good records, he don't have that marquee win. I mean, the only
Right.
thing he had on this year, the two teams he lost to, is in the college football playoffs. But man, let's see. I'll give them a B minus. B minus.
B minus.
B minus.
Final two teams. The runners up in the Big 12 East, the Ohio State Buckeyes, 8-1 overall, 11-1
Woo,
overall. They'll be in
woo.
the playoffs as the fourth seed taking against Georgia. Where do you have your Buckeyes? I'm going to give Ohio State an A minus.
Uh, I love my Buckeyes. I get the opportunity to go to my first Buckeye game. Been watching Buckeye football since 2007. Florida beat the mess out of them. I wanted to get up out of there, but I hung around and we hired Urban Meyer, and it's been glorious since then. Foot at the door. Charles, man, the defense still. I'm still questioning if the defense up to par. The cornerback play has been terrible at Ohio State since Jeff Okudah and Damon Arnett's gone to the league. Charles. We ain't had a rushing touchdown from the quarterback 2 years consecutive. 2 years consecutively, we have not had a rushing touchdown from the quarterback. Oh, Charles, I'm gonna have to give my Buckeyes a B minus. I'm gonna
Woo!
give B
Tough.
minus, man. B minus. B minus. B minus, Charles. It's the defense, man. It's Ohio State defense. It's just not up to par, and it needs to get better.
Yeah. Now, the last team we're talking about, the team that beat y'all, suffered y'all only loss against, the Big Ten champions and number two seed in the college football playoffs, the Michigan Wolverines. I'm going to give Michigan an A for the season.
Let's see, an A4 season. Now, are you giving them that because they beat Ohio State 2 years in a row? Because I've been arguing with people if the game Ohio State was only down with 8 points with 7 minutes left in the game, and they took their pads off, and Donna Edinburgh pops off for 270-yard runs out of nowhere. It was like playing NCAA football on junior varsity and just trying to keep some XP points. What he was doing, and let's see, man. Let's see, Jim Harbaugh. Let's see, man. People want him out of there bad, man. You know what, Charles? I was actually listening to a podcast last week, and they say, what is the best thing that's happened for that program? The best thing that's happened for Michigan football is when they opted out to play Ohio State in 2020 season. Because right now, there's only one team in college football the last two seasons have a better record than Michigan. That's the Georgia Bulldogs. Michigan right now is what, 24-2? I think 24-2, 25-2. Man,
Yeah.
I hate to say this. I have to give them an A minus. But I tell you what, man, if they quarterback can get up to par with consistent pass game, they can be a dangerous team. And the last I checked, man, I heard Braden Allen from Wisconsin was thinking about going to
Really?
them. So yeah, I give them an A minus. I mean, Jim Harbaugh really got that thing rolling right now. He really does, man.
Well, man, that's all the schools for the Power 5 week. It took us over an hour and a half, but we got them all in, man. Uh, I want to ask two more questions, and we're gonna shut it out. What is your most surprising team of this year, and what is your most disappointing team of this year?
Let's see. The most surprising team this season. Well, if we got any Florida State fan that tunes in and listens, I really think Florida State is the most improved team this season. And I'm still trying to figure out what in the hell is the committee looking at. There's just no way you give Tulane, you give Tulane a New Year's Six bowl win, a New Year's Six bowl bid over Florida State if you got Florida State ranked 13th as a three-loss team. And the worst team this season, Charles, you already know where I'm going with this.
Oklahoma.
A&M Aggies.
Oh,
Lord have
and the
mercy.
Aggies. Oh, wow.
They is the worst team. Charles, they are terrible. 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 Terrible coaching. There was no fight in that team. Them guys there to collect the money. Transfer portal is it's ridiculous how them guys are lined it out. Jimbo thought that he could make it seem like that he can put his foot down by benching this guy, benching that guy. Haynes King don't pack his bag, trying to find him another home. Texas A&M Aggies is the most disappointing team I have seen all season long.
I'm gonna give
I
you
mean,
mine.
you were given you was given $28 million according to the sources. $28 million, and you put up a 4-8 record. You lose 6 games, what 6 or 7 games back to back.
Right.
Man, Charles, I can't replicate on that, Charles. They are the worst team in college football. They are the biggest disappointment in college football I have seen all season long. Texas A&M.
All right. So I'm gonna give two teams each. The two most surprising teams in college football for one is gonna be Florida State, and number two, I'm gonna say Kansas State. My two most surprising teams of the year. They're the
Mm.
two worst teams in college football. Definitely A&M is one of them, and the other, mm, I got to say Oklahoma.
Oklahoma.
A&M Oklahoma. I would say A&M and Michigan State, but there was really no high hopes for Michigan State going this year.
I
Oklahoma
I
was
I,
a
I
playoff
like
contender,
I
and
like
they
I like I like what you said. If we was given the opportunity to rank two, I will put Oklahoma in there. But Charles, believe it or not, TCU was heading downhill until Sonny Dyke got in there and turned that thing around. So I would have to give them as my second most improved team.
okay, fair enough, fair enough, fair enough. But man, I appreciate you coming on tonight, man. I really do, man. We talked about every team in the Power Five and FBS play. We said some things that were kind of a stretch. We
Mm-hmm.
talked about a lot of good things. We talked about a lot of teams. We hope you gave me a very good observation of Ohio State. Hopefully they can bring home a natty. I'll be looking forward to watching that game and all the other bowl games coming up in this bowl season. I would appreciate my co-host tonight, Justin, aka Walker City Walker, coming late night for a podcast episode. You grade all Power Five schools. I
Anytime, man.
appreciate.
You know we live and bleed college football.
I'd definitely love to have you on for the next episode. So stay tuned for Walker City and the video we do on this channel, man. Hit the subscribe button. Well, this video should be going to Apple Podcasts real soon, so check it out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Deezer, iHeartRadio, and Amazon Music. Till we meet again, I want to thank Justin Walker for tuning in with me tonight as we grade all Power 5 schools 2022 season. This is your host, Whoop, and we out, man. I appreciate you coming on, Justin. You have a blessed night.
You too. Now, folks, if you don't, if you remember one thing that we tell you tonight, remember our mom used to always tell us, and our dad used to always tell us, money can't buy everything. And if you think we're lying, look at A&M.
Y'all have a good night, guys.